Okay. So the shiur this week is dedicated Le'ilui Nishmat Yosef ben Zerachia. So his neshama should have an aliyah from the Torah and the food. Okay. So this week we're in the beginning of Masechet Hullin. Right? We finished Menacho, moved on to Hullin, and this week I'd like to discuss a ruling that Rabbi gives, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, that is met with opposition by the rest of the people or the rest of the leadership in his day. And the way that he justified his ruling is somewhat surprising. And we'll see how that plays out in the various midrashim, and perhaps at the end try to get an understanding from some later midrashim and commentaries on the hashkafic way to try to understand Rebbe's position. So, if we begin, so just to get some context, and it'll be clear in a moment why it's relevant, if we can just learn this passage in Bamidbar Perek Chaf Aleph, it's about the story of the Nachash HaNechoshet. So, Vayisu mihor hahar derech Yamsuf lisvov et Eretz Edom, v'tiktzar nefesh ha'am badarech. So it's the 40th year, Bnei Yisrael are wandering in the desert, and the people are hungry. וידבר העם באלוהים ומשה למה העליתונו ממצרים נאום במדבר כי אין לחם ואין מים ונפשנו קצר בלחם הקלוקל. Okay, so the people complain against God and Moshe, and they say, why did you bring us into the desert? וישלח אדוני בעם את הנחשים השרפים וינחשו את העם וימות עם רב מישראל. So God sends these fiery serpents to bite the people, and they get punished with that. ויבוא העם אל משה ויאמרו חטאנו כי דיברנו באדוני ובך ויתפלל אל אדוני ויסר מעלינו את הנחש ויתפלל משה בעד העם. So the people ask for forgiveness. Please pray to remove the serpents. And Moshe prays. ויאמר אדוני משה יעשה לך שרף ושים אותו על נס והיה כל נשוך וראה אותו וחי. So God says to Moshe, Hashem says to Moshe, make for yourself a statue of a serpent and put it on a banner, and anybody who's bitten should look at it and he will survive. ויעש משה נחש נחושת וישמר על הנס והיה נשך הנחש את איש והביט אל נחש הנחושת וחי. And that is in fact what happened. Moshe creates this bronze serpent, he puts it up on this banner, anybody who's bitten looks at it and survives. And
it's a very interesting thing. I guess it's not close in history, but in the Chumash it's quite close. So just after Egel Azov, you have like this definite don't do that, and then they're like, they make a brass animal that's kind of the amulet. It's just a bit of a weird. Is that why?
It feels like Avodah Zarah a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Baruch shekivanta. Yeah, very nice. Exactly. It is exactly very strange that is the solution offered. The difference, of course, being that Hashem explicitly commands it, but it does have a feel of Avodah Zarah, and that is a very good insight. And that's exactly what we'll be talking about. The other thing that's just worth noting, I just noticed now, just reading these psukim, is that Bnei Yisrael's request to Moshe is very similar to Paro's request during the Makot. Right? They say, "Chatanu ki dibarnu b'Adonai v'vach yitpalel Adonai v'aser leinu." I think it's almost the exact same language, right? V'aser melai et arov hazeh, et barad hazeh. It's arov. So it's a very similar language that Paro uses. But be that as it may, so this is stated in Bamidbar. Does this particular Nachash Nechoshet ever make an appearance again? Or is it just in this isolated incident in the Midbar? So we find that it actually does come up again. So, Hullin Vav Amud Bet. Hi Rabbi Yeshua ben Zaruz ben Chamiv shel Rabbi Meir lifnei Rabbi. Al Rabbi Meir she'achal aleh shel yerek beveit she'an. Okay, so this is within this halachic context where there's a testimony given about Rabbi Meir. Before Rebbe, the Rabbi Meir one time ate a leaf of a vegetable in Beit She'an, right? And the context there is without having done Truman Maser and this whole thing. V'tir Rebbe et Beit She'an kula al yado. So Rebbe understood from that anecdote or incident that Beit She'an is not considered part of Eretz Yisrael, and you're allowed to. It doesn't fall under the restriction of needing to take Truman Maser, and he permitted the entire area.
Or he just bought it from a non-Jew.
So the Gemara goes through a whole back and forth about how do you know that it wasn't this, and how do you know, right? And the halacha, it's a good point, right? They discuss how do you know that maybe he.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
There's a whole back and forth. You're right. It's not for now, but the Gemara concludes that we can be somech on the fact that Rebbe knew that Rebbe Meir had actually done it, even though it should have been Maaser, but it was because he didn't think it was Maaser, and that there wasn't some other reason that he ate the vegetable. So feel free to explore that on your own time. Chibru alav echav uveit aviv. Okay, so Rebbe Yehuda Nasi's brothers and father's house came against him. ואמרו לו, מקום שאבותיך ואבות אבותיך נהגו בו איסור, אתה תנהוג בו היתר. For generations, we have associated Beit Sha'an with a place that you cannot take Trumot and Ma'asorot from. It's part of Eretz Yisrael. Now suddenly you're going to come and be matirit.
You
can't eat without taking.
You can't eat without taking because it's not considered. Right, you want to eat without taking now. Right. Thank you, I misspoke. Darash lahen mikra zeh. So Rebbe responded as follows. It says in Melachim Bet Perik Yud Chet in the context of Chizkiyahu Melech. Right, he was one of the most righteous kings who lived. V'chitet nachash hanachoshet asher asa Moshe. Ki arei yamim hahema hayu bnei Yisrael maktirin lo v'ikra lo nechushtan. So Chizkiyahu, when he came along, right, his father and his father's father had been Ovdei Avodah Zarah. They'd been wicked. Chizkiyahu came and did a whole reformation. He destroyed all these shrines and idols and this and that. And as part of that, he destroyed this Nachash HaNachoshet from the story in Bamidbar that Moshe had made. Because in his day, Bnei Yisrael were worshipping it. They were sacrificing to this Nachash HaNachoshet. And as an aside, Vaikra lo Nechushtan. They even had a name for this serpent. It was called the Nechushtan. And Chizkiyahu destroyed it. So, what does he conclude from that? Efshar ba'asa v'lo bi'aro, ba'yoshafat v'lo bi'aro, v'lo kol avodah zarah sheba'olam asa v'yoshafat bi'arum. So Chizkiyahu wasn't the first righteous king who had lived, right? There were those who preceded him, Asa, Yoshafat. So if you have this bronze serpent from the days of Moshe, why didn't these previous kings that are described as having done Ayashar B'nei Hashem destroy it? Why is it only when it gets to Chizkiyahu's time that it gets destroyed?
But why didn't Moshe keep it around in the first place? Yeah.
Why did Moshe keep it around for the plague, to save the people?
When it was done.
Oh. Good question. I don't know.
So that Chizkiyahu could destroy it later.
Okay, that's kind of where we're going, actually. That's kind of the answer. Ela makom henichu lo avotav להתגדר bo. His ancestors left a place for him to be great, which is basically what Reuven just said. That it's applied to Asa and Yoshafat, but maybe you can extend it all the way back to Moshe himself, that they knew that they wanted to give their righteous descendants a chance to prove themselves and to be great and to do a Kiddush Hashem.
But on the flip side, loads of their descendants were over the Avodah Zarah because of that.
Yeah,
like
it's not
one guy was able to prove himself, but loads of people were.
Yeah.
It's like can you kill one person to save a lot of people like that?
The trolley dilemma.
Yeah. It's worse.
Right,
Well,
it's like killing a million people to save one.
Because it's the same act, meaning by allowing them later to be righteous, you're automatically allowing all the people to not.
Right.
It's not either or. It's because you've left it around.
Yeah.
All these people
It's
are
like
celebrated.
killing millions.
No, it's not the same thing though, because those are two separate actions.
Okay. That's true.
So yes, I think the question Shimon raised is a great one, which is, that's great that Chizkiyahu will destroy it eventually, but you're also leading a lot of people astray in the process, right? So I think that's the central kind of challenge of this particular approach. He says, Afani makom enichu li avutai להתגדר bo. So Rebbe says, I'm doing the same thing, right? You object to me that I'm being matir now Beit Sha'an, because for hundreds of years people were aser. They wanted to give an opportunity for me to come along and be matir an area so that I could do a Kiddush Hashem. So that's Rebbe's justification for how he was allowed to be matir something that for generations had been asur.
Interesting.
It's a very dangerous head to this.
Yeah.
Stop being matter, whatever we like. We're like, they left it for
It's
us.
all for me.
And this is Rabbi Yehuda Nasi who's making this argument, right? He's not just some somebody. So it's a very interesting concept. And then the Gemara concludes and says, "Mikan Talmid Chacham she'amar dvar halacha she'en mizichin oto ve'amri la'en maznichin oto ve'amri la'en mazchichin oto." Basically, you conclude from this that if there's a scholar who says something and there's different girsaot, but basically that you don't think that he's being arrogant in saying something, but you actually attribute that there was some reason why he said what he said, even if it's against the kind of the accepted opinion. Okay, so I think we understand kind of the the koach of this particular idea. Before we go into the concept of makom henichu avutai להתגדר, but let's understand the actual nachash and nechoshet a little bit more. So first of all, back to Shimon's question, was it avodah zarah? Right? So you have here that there are people in the days of Chizkiyahu, we're told explicitly by the Navi, that they were sacrificing to it. So look at Avodah Zarah, Daf Mem Gimel Amud Bet. So the Mishnah there says, Rabbi Yossi Omer shochek v'zoreh laruach o metil hayam. Amru lo afu ne'esa zevel shene'emar lo yidbak be'adcha me'uma min acharem. So they're discussing how far do you have to go to destroy Avodah Zarah to fulfill the mitzvah of kind of obliterating Avodah Zarah. So Rabbi Yossi says you can grind it up and throw it into the wind, or you can just take the idol or whatever it is and throw it into the sea, and that's considered enough of getting rid of it. But the Chachamim say back to him, no, if you grind it up and you throw it into the wind, it could be nasa zevel, it can become fertilizer, and then you can get hana'ah even from that. That's not good enough. And the Torah says, Lo yidbak be'adcha me'uma min achem. It's even a kol shu, you can't get any benefit from it.
And therefore, what?
Haram is a Hebrew word. I didn't know that.
Is it?
Cherem?
No, like this is like idolatry.
Oh, from the forbidden.
No?
Right.
Yeah.
Forbidden. I'm saying in Arabic.
Haram
Haram
is.
is.
Yeah, I think it's the same root. Yeah,
I did
same
not
word.
know that.
Did they offer
Hamas.
solution?
Vatim is Hamas. Yeah.
That's something.
Hummus.
Sound like they're like halfway through a thought here. They're like, therefore you can't do the throwing in the wind, and so do they offer something else or?
In the Mishnah, I don't think so. But
They don't
in
know
the
that's
Gemara, I might discuss it, what their alternative is. I think they say you have to maybe burn it to the point where it's not recognizable. I'm not as familiar with the halachic things there, but we can go look at it. The reason I brought this, though, was for the Gemara, it goes back and forth. Rabbi Yossi tries to convince the Chachamim that to grind it up and throw it in the wind is considered sufficient, and he brings cases to support it. And one of them is our case here. Amar len Rabbi Yossi, v'alo kvar ne'emar, it's said by Chizkiyahu, v'chiteit nachash nechoshet asher asa Moshe. So Chizkiyahu came and ground up the bronze serpent. Kiteit is to grind up. So how can you say that that's not good enough to destroy Avodah Zarah? So Amrulo, so the Chachamim said back to Misham Raya, you're bringing a proof from that story. Arehu Omer, Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, Aseh lecha saraf. God said to Moshe, make for yourself a bronze serpent. Aseh lecha saraf. That was the divine command. Lecha mishelcha. That Moshe, the drasha there is that Moshe actually made the nechash and nechoshet from his own property, his own nechasim. Ve'en adam oser davar she'eno shelo. So people can't be aser avodah zarah by worshiping it if it doesn't belong to them. So therefore, v'hatam b'denu dikitute lo avatzarich. And therefore, there really wasn't any requirement to go and destroy the Nachash and Nechoshet because it didn't belong to the people that were sacrificing to it. It belonged to Moshe Rabbeinu because it was made from his property. Ela kevan dechaza dekatau Yisrael batrei amad v'chitato. So why did Chizkiyahu destroy it if it wasn't technically required to destroy it halachically? Because he saw that people were going and worshiping to it, and he saw that it was leading them astray. So he did an act that was above and beyond the strict letter of the law, and he ground it up. But he wasn't in violation of not destroying Avodah Zarah to the extent that it needs to be destroyed halachically, because it didn't need to be destroyed to that extent. So that's what the Gemara in Avodah Zarah argues about the Nachash and Nechoshet. Okay? Just to kind of conclude thoughts on this was this a good thing that Chizkiyahu destroyed it? Is that something that we see as a favorable act or not? Because on the one hand, it was something that was created by Moshe Rabbeinu, and God said to make it. So where does he get the authority to come and destroy it hundreds and hundreds of years later? Right? So the Mishnah Pesachim says, Shisha dvorim asa Chizkiyahu melech, ha-shlosha hodu lo, va-shosha hodu lo. So Chizkiyahu did 6 things that were a bit controversial on his own volition. 3 they kind of approved of, and 3 they didn't approve of. Gerar atzmot aviv al mita shel chavalim vehodu lo. So the first is he took his father's bones, a coffin, and he dragged them on ropes, kind of to be mevazeh them, to disgrace his father's bones, because his father was Rasha. Bones, and they agreed with that. Kiteit nachash and nechoshet vehodu lo. He destroyed the bronze serpent, and they approved that. V'ganas sefer vehodu lo. And there was this book of medicine that he buried because he didn't want people to rely on it. He wanted them to daven to Hashem instead, and they approved of that as well. And there were 3 things Chizkiyahu did that they did not approve of. Kitzitz da'atot shel hecha v'shigran lemelech Ashur V'lo dulo, he took the doors off of the Eichal and sent them to the king of Ashur, and they did not like that. Satam me gichon elyon v'lo dulo, he stopped up some waters, and they did not approve of that. Yiber Nisan b'Nisan v'lo dulo, and he did a Shana Me'uberet with Nisan instead of Adar, and they did not approve of that. Okay, that's our point. Just an interesting point. In Avodah Rabbi Natan, it has the same tradition, but a bit of a difference. It says, Chizkiyahu melech Yehuda asa arba dvarim, v'skima da'ato l'dat hamakom. So first of all, it's 4 things that they agreed with instead of 3. And the second thing is that instead of hodu, which is, assumption is the rabbis or some people, it says, Iskima da'ato l'dat hamakom, that it's God himself who agreed with Chizkiyahu's actions. Kana sefer refuot v'iskim edato l'dat hamakom. He buried the book of medicine. Kited nachash and choshen v'iskim edato l'dat hamakom. So here, him destroying the bronze serpent, it gets God's stamp of approval as well. V'sir tabamot v'mizbachot v'iskim edato l'dat hamakom v'satam megichon v'iskim edato l'dat hamakom. This last one is a machloket between the Mishnah Pesachim and Avodah Rabbi Natan, whether stopping up that particular spring was good or not good. Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. Let's get into the meat and bones of this now. So, the Gemara in Shabbat and Daf Nun Vav Amud Bet says as follows. Kidetanya, Rabbi Yossi Omer, Et habamot asher al pnei Yerushalayim, asher mimin lahar mishcha, asher bana Shlomo melech Yisrael, lashtoret, shikutz tzidonim v'gomer. This is from Yoshiyahu, who lived after Chizkiyahu and was also one of the righteous kings. So it was Chizkiyahu, a few generations Yoshiyahu. He too was a reformer with a lot of zeal, and he came and destroyed all the Avodah Zarah that had accrued in the generations in between them. And it describes as part of that he destroyed certain bamot that were built by Shlomo HaMelech to Ashtoret, the shikutz of Shidonim. So you can ask the same exact question that we asked about the Nachash and Nachoshet, right?
He left it there for Yoshiyahu.
Okay, so Efshar ba'asa v'lo bi'arum, Yoshefa v'lo bi'aram, Ad sheba Yoshiyahu bi'aram. Now, again, why didn't Asa and Yosheva destroy these bamot that were around from the days of Shlomo Melech if they were for Avodah Zarah? So what could we say? They left a place for Yoshiyahu also to be להתגדר בו. ולא כל עבודה זרה שבארץ ישראל עשה ויושבה בירום, אלא מקיש ראשונים לאחרונים. מה האחרונים לא עשו ותלה בהן לשבח, אף ראשונים לא עשו ותלה בהן לגנאי. So it doesn't say that. The Gemara here gives a different suggestion. What does this suggestion mean? Rashi, מקיש את בניינו של שלמה לביאורו של ישעיהו. Pasuk connects the construction of Shlomo with the destruction of Yoshiyahu. מה יושעיהו לא עשה ביאור זה ותלו בו מן השמיים לשבח, הואילו ביאר השער שנעשה משמת יהושפט, אף שלמה לא עשה בניין ותלו בו לגנות מתוך שלא מיכה בנשיו. So they say that neither of these are literal. When it says Shlomo built the bamot, he didn't really build them. His wives built them, and he didn't stop them. So the pasuk attributes it to him as if he had built them, because he should have stopped his wives. And on the flip side, Yoshiyahu did not destroy these bamot. He destroyed everything else. So the pasuk attributes it to him as if he had destroyed them himself, but really they had already been destroyed.
Sorry, that didn't make sense.
Okay.
He destroyed everything, so why is it? He's still in the last bit again?
Yeah, so Yoshiyahu destroyed all the Avodah Zarah in his day, but he didn't destroy, according to this Gemara, these bamot. And the way that we know that is because it says that they were built by Shlomo HaMelech, and Shlomo HaMelech didn't really build them, his wives built them, but the pasuk says he built them to implicate him in the fact that he didn't stop his wives, and the pasuk gives praise to Yoshiyahu for destroying them, even though he just didn't destroy them, but destroyed everything else.
I don't get it. He left them alone, or somebody else destroyed them?
Somebody else destroyed them, but it attributes their destruction to him.
Okay.
And it doesn't say who did destroy them.
But
just
somebody
that,
of his generation whilst he was alive, or is this?
I suppose, yeah.
If it's answering the question of why not Asa or the other ones, Shafat, then it would probably be from a previous generation.
Yeah, it could be that really Yehoshaphat did destroy them. I guess you could read that into this.
But the fact that he destroyed all of them, what does that mean?
That we still say that he destroyed even that. But your questions are based on the fact this is a very forced reading, right? This is not pshat at all in these psukim. And so the question is, as as much of a challenge as we had on the previous explanation of, they left it for their future generations, this seems even perhaps more forced of a reading, I would argue. So why not just use what we gave in the Gemara in Hullin? So that's Tosfot's question. Tosfot says, Lo shayach lememar hacha makom henichu lo avotav להתגדר bo. Kedamar b'per kama d'Hullin, gabei nechash nechoshet, shibi'er chizkiya. Why can't you say that? Dehatam lo bi'aru avotav shayu dira'im leva'aro lefi she'asao Moshe al pi hadibur. Aval hacha lama hayu manichim mileva'aram. That's Tosfot's reason to say why you can't say here that the ancestors left it for Yoshiyahu to destroy it, is that the reason you can apply that over there by the Nechash Nechoshet is because it was a command from Hashem. God commanded Moshe to build it. So you could argue that maybe Asa and Yehoshaphat, who had destroyed all the Avodah Zarah in the whole world, they didn't destroy the Nechash Nechoshet because they said, well, people might be worshiping it, but God still said that we should make it. It's an object of Kedusha that came directly from a divine command. And Chizkiyahu had the insight or the clarity to say, I'm going to destroy it anyway. But you can't make that argument over here. Because over here, they're destroying Bamot that were built for other gods. So there's no inyan of being afraid to destroy it because maybe there's some Kedusha and maybe you shouldn't destroy it. So that's why you can't apply that logic in our Gemara in Shabbat. And that's why it's forced into giving this perhaps even more dachuk explanation. And Tosfot, both in Shabbat and Hullin, basically says the same thing. I brought them both here, but basically it's the same argument in both cases. Let's now go back and touch, I think, on the discomfort we had originally, or the question that we had originally around what does it mean that they left it for their future generations to have like a greater name through its destruction? Does that mean they consciously said, right, Asa and Yehoshaphat came along and said, I'm going to destroy not all the Avodah Zarah, but they saw the Nechash Nechoshet and said, you know what, hundreds of years from now, there's going to be a descendant of ours, we want to give him a chance to destroy something? Is that really what that statement is saying? So the Maharsha says as follows, Ein pi Rashi, im asu ken asa v'Yehoshaphat bechavana, kefi hamuvan miperusho. That's what Rashi claims. Rashi says, indeed, that they did it willfully and intentionally. Vu kasheh, and that's a difficult read. Shianiach et Yisrael la'avod avodah zarah mishum beno sheitgadel shemo. Right? It's hard to say that a king such as Asa Yehoshaphat would leave Bnei Israel to worship avodah zarah and accrue all those sins just for the sake of a descendant of his whose name would become great through its destruction. But you can suggest that what this really means is it's not that they did this purposefully, but just that they didn't realize it. They didn't think about it. It wasn't something that they kind of processed. And Rabbi's making a similar argument with Beit Sha'an when they answered it. It's because it wasn't that they consciously said, oh, we're going to say Beit Sha'an is considered like Eretz Yisrael, so that Rebbe can come along hundreds of years from now and say that it's not and be matir it. Rather, they just didn't. It just wasn't something that they really understood fully, and so they just didn't think about it to the fullest extent, or something like that. That's the Maharsha's way to kind of explain that phrase. If we look at the
are we assuming that at the time before Chizkiyahu, that snake was definitely being used for avodah?
Good. So it doesn't say that. It just says in his day.
Right. So could it be that before? That's an easy way to read that. It's just before Chizkiyahu, they just weren't using it for avodah.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I think the Khatam Sofer may allude to that, but I don't remember. We'll see it in a minute. But yeah, that's actually something I thought about as well. That could be
much easier just to say that than anything other.
But then you have to answer why specifically in the day of Chizkiyahu, after hundreds of years, they suddenly decided to start worshiping the snake.
They found it? No, like
People are terrible.
What?
People.
Yeah, 'cause people do weird things.
Yeah, they're like, oh, it's ancient, powerful object. Let's just
start worshiping it. Okay, fair enough. That would avoid.
It's not a stretch to say that it wasn't used for Avodah Zarah, and people decided let's just worship it.
Yeah, I think I can't see any reason why that wouldn't be a possible approach, other than nobody I saw suggests it.
It says ki ad hayam mahahema hayubnei Yisrael makatem.
Wait,
Who else would come here and
Meaning?
destroy all of these nice ideas?
I mean, they were using
Ad
it.
Hayam
Right,
Rahima. Until this day, they've been using it as a.
From
Hang
some
on.
point
Yeah,
until
but
then.
exactly. But what point in time?
Well, not from his time. Before his time.
No, but the question is, what does that mean though? What is that, from Moshe's time?
Wasn't from Moshe's time for sure.
Maybe shortly.
You're saying it could have been from his father's time, and his father was a
Yeah,
Russia, but it was after
exactly.
Yehoshaphat.
That doesn't prove that it was from the
Okay.
time.
Until this day is not usually used for a short period like that. It's for generations. I think. Could
Okay.
be wrong.
I could have had my argument destroyed right now.
I think there's room to. It's
Well, depends how
it's
you
certainly
define
to me not less of a valid approach than the one that the Gemara chooses to go with. It seems, but it could be wrong. Yeah. Okay, the Eitz Yosef makes the implicit here explicit, and he says as follows: Makom henichu. You see the Eitz Yosef in the screenshot there. Okay. כשיבואו בנינו אחרינו, אם לא ימצאו מה לתקן, במה יגדל שמם. So Rashi says, they consciously said, how are our children going to be great if we don't leave some avodah zarah for them to destroy? וזה נראה דוחק קצת. דשבקי למי עבד איסורה כדי שיגדל שם בניהם אחריהם, that they would leave something asur to be worshipped until their son comes along. לכך נראה דלא עשה כלל על דעת עשיו יהושפט לבאר נחש נחושת. Therefore, he suggests that it didn't even cross their minds to destroy the Nachash Nechoshet. Why not? Even though they destroyed all of the Avodah Zarah in the world, Natan HaKadosh Baruch Hu lahem belibam shelo yargishu benachash hanechoshet kedei she'anichu zeh livnehem achrehem legadel shemam. So here the Eitz Yosef is saying that God directly intervened and in the heart of Asa and Yehoshaphat and made them not think to destroy the Nachash and Nechoshet so that Chizkiyahu would destroy it hundreds of years later.
to the parsha.
Like Parna.
Yeah.
With Paro.
Yeah.
Right. Chazek, yeah. That seems to be what he's arguing, right? Natan HaKadosh Baruch Hu lahem belibam. That's how he understands this idea of, because otherwise, like we said, how do you understand Asan Yoshaphat consciously? Rashi, it's Dachuk, what he says. They wanted to give their descendant a chance. Versus saying, that for whatever reason, God decided that generation was not the time to destroy the Nechash and Nechoshet, and he made it so that Asan Yoshaphat were not able to realize that it should be destroyed. V'chein mashma behedya b'Yerushalmi, etc., etc. Okay, and if we just get to the last line there, v'nir'eh l'chapes eze siba v'ta'ut natan HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'libam shelo yargishu b'Nechash and Nechoshet levi'aro, af al pi sheyu anashim shetaru acharav. So we need to find some reason for this. So he now comes and brings in Tosfot to help, right? That he says, but even if God came and intervened, they still needed some logical explanation, even if they were being swayed in some way by God's, hardening their heart. They still need some explanation for why they're not going to destroy the Nechash and Nechoshet. And that could be what Tosfot said around, well, God commanded it, so it's some object that we can't destroy. But they didn't have the insight that Chizkiyahu had to destroy it anyway. And I love this line, there's a Mishnah in Avodah Zarah where people come and ask the Chachamim, they say, why, if so many people worship the sun and the moon and the stars, why doesn't God just destroy them? Because they are creating all of this sin in the world through the fact that they exist. And the answer given is, is God going to destroy this world because there's some fools who are mistakenly worshiping the Avodah Zarah in the world? And so the idea, of course, being that God created the world, and then people act the way that they act, and he shouldn't not create things that are susceptible to leading people astray just because people will be led astray. So the same concept here, where that they thought maybe we shouldn't destroy the Nechash and Nechoshet because would we destroy something just because some people are worshipping it when they shouldn't be. But then when Chizkiyahu came along, God did not intervene, and he also realized that even though God had commanded to create the Nechash and Nechoshet, more important was that people should not have any outlet for sacrificing to some object that isn't God, and so he had the insight to destroy it. That's how the Eitz Yosef explains this concept of what Rebbe is arguing. Just to kind of conclude on a more of a hashkafic point. So how do we understand this concept? And what does it mean, right? So the Psikta Zutarta, which is a midrash from around, I think, the 11 or 1200s, a commentary on the Torah. So he says as follows: Ki בעוד הימים ההם היו ישראל מקטירים לו ויקרא לו נחושתן. ראה משה תקנו להיות לאות לישראל לזכור ניסי אלוהינו. So he says, first of all, Moshe established it to be something that people would look to remember the miracles of God. וכל השנים שעברו מימות משה ועד חזקיהו, לא כיתתו אדם, לא מלך ולא נביא עד שבא חזקיהו. And then for all those generations, no one destroyed it. וכמה ביארו עשה ויושפט ושאר הצדיקים, מבערי העשירות והבעלים, איך לא כיתתו זה הנחש? How could the other righteous kings not have destroyed it? ועוד כמה עתידות, אמר משה רבינו, ולא היה יודע כי ישראל עתידין להקטיר לו. And this is, someone asked this question, didn't Moshe Rabbeinu know kama atidot, things that would develop in the future? How could he not have known that Bnei Israel would worship the Nechash and Nechoshet? In other words, I think what he's saying is, and why didn't Moshe destroy it? Right? He should have known that they would end up worshiping it. V'lama henichu liot michshol Yisrael. Why did Moshe, Asa, Yehoshaphat leave it to lead the people astray? And then the Psikta Zutarta's answer is, Ela kach derech haolam. That's the way the world works. Ze bedoro v'ze bedoro. V'chulan ha-mishartin et Eloheinu be'emet nikrain avadav. That basically, the way the world is that everyone has their tafkid in the world. Everybody is able to accomplish what they're able to accomplish, and everybody leaves things unfinished. And nobody, even Asa Yehoshaphat, even Moshe Rabbeinu, cannot possibly understand every single ramification of every single act. There's always work that's left undone. There's always things that the next generation has to come and fulfill. And everybody who, in that process, the historical process of filling that gap, of destroying a little bit more of a Avodah, being metaken the world a little bit more, is considered an Eved Hashem. There's not one generation that can come fix all the generations. Rather, in every generation, the leaders of Israel come tell the people the correct path for that generation. They fix things, they innovate things, they add things on what existed before, all in the process of worshiping, of creating a path for worshiping Hashem. And just to finish, the Chatam Sofer, obviously, who lived a little bit after the Psikta Zutarta, so he says, I'll just skip really to the part that I think is more relevant. Ve'alzektiv, after the three dots, ve'alzektiv yitzfun le'isharim tushia. There's a pasuk that says that the straightness or the uprightness is hidden away for the righteous. And the Chatam Sofer understands that to mean HaKadosh Baruch Hu matmin umatspin tushia v'torah me'enei yesharim ad shiavi mi shenafal ze bechelko v'goralo. That God hides and kind of puts away Torah, uprightness and truth from the eyes of the righteous in given generations, until somebody where it falls in his portion, in his lot, to come and reveal it comes along. And therefore we daven and we hope to get a portion in God's Torah. Every person should merit the portion that is hidden away for him. Basically, the Chatam Sofer takes the idea of Psikta Zutarta and again makes it more explicit. It's not just as the Psikta Zutarta says that, every generation leaves things unfinished and there's no way that everyone can do it, but the Chatam Sofer is that's all a divine part of the divine plan. That in every generation God actively hides. He comes and he says to Asa and Yehoshaphat, no, you don't think that the Nachash and Nechoshet should be destroyed, even though it should, because for whatever reason it needs to be Chizkiyahu who comes along later, has the insight and clarity that it needs to be destroyed, and then he is able to be Mitgadel Shemo as well in the future.
Yeah, we all find our Nachash.
Oh.
May we all find the snake that we need to destroy in our own lives. Very nice. Amen.